I was honestly kind of nervous going there first because I was worried how like citizens would feel who were attending the museum. You know, you're seeing some pretty horrific acts, and pictures and videos of police officers.
I was pumped because I actually tried months ago whenever I got to the academy to get tickets, but it was backed up in August the whole way to March.
But I just thought the entire museum itself, just the way from start to finish, it was awesome.
The museum painted a picture. I know about my history. I hear about everything, but to actually see it and actually watch videos of things that goes on, it really, everything stuck out.
You felt like you were going through history, not just from the pictures and the videos, but just the environment. You really like felt it.
I really liked the fact that when you start from the ground up, you start with, I guess, the darkest of the history of the museum, the darkest parts, and we were there and it was so crowded.
And the ceiling was very low, it was very cramped, and it kind of reminded you of like what it'd be like to be on the ship. And there was even people who were like, oh, this is kind of very claustrophobic. And then you would come out into this area where there's these large concrete blocks.
A big kind of like rock, like a flat boulder at the beginning of the museum, and it's where, you know, they basically like showed slaves and auctioned them off.
And then eventually we get to the part where you see like the numbers of how many were enslaved by which country and how many people actually made it across the sea. And you would see numbers where like out of a ship of 500 slaves, maybe only 150 made it.
And they were kind of playing like a recording of mothers and children, you know, crying because they were being torn apart, and it was heartbreaking. I stood there and just kind of stared at it for a while, and like it just hit me, you know, that the rest of the day I just kept hearing that over and over again, and it made it very real.
I've been in this area my whole life, and to know that Prince George's County in DC was a big for like tobacco and stuff and housed a lot of slaves, that really hit home for me.
Our nation was built by people in forced servitude, you know, by slaves. You know, it wasn't a nation, you know, built by free people.
Many people thought that that was the right thing to do. And so that kind of stuck out to me a little bit more than anything. I mean, yes, the policing aspect stuck out to me, but yet when you first started and you did the slave trade, that stuck out to me more because people thought that was the right thing to do.
Something that really stuck with me was seeing Emmett Till's casket.
Emmett Till's casket?
The Emmett Till casket.
Emmett Till's casket.
The Emmett Till one.
It makes me really emotional, actually. I had a lump in my throat the whole time. It was very disheartening.
Like, it was real. It felt like we was actually at his funeral, walking through.
I don't know, I just came out of there, it was just like, wow. Like, it was just intense, very heavy moment.
You know, the Emmett Till exhibit was very, very prolific to me. I mean, having a son and, you know, never wanting that experience to happen to him or anyone else's son or daughter.
That one almost brought me to tears, just because I had already kind of had a brief history of Emmett Till. I did not know that he was only 14.
We were able to see pictures, the open casket and all the injuries that were sustained to his body, and it was very, very hard to see.
And to find out that his mom also had an open casket, because she said,
"No, I want the world to see what I've seen."
I could never imagine the pain that she went through, and I still felt so much having been so removed.
I am encouraged by Emmett Till's mother and what she, like, you know, how she had the courage to have an open casket and have everyone see what happened to her son, and that kind of sparked and fueled the civil rights movement.
The civil rights movement that we went through is not too far in our history's past. It was just a number of years ago. There are many people who live in our city who lived through that. And they saw that the way that law enforcement was either an active participant or was complicit in participating and holding folks down just because of their race.
The Greensboro counter, the food counter, which talks a lot about not just the sit-ins, but also freedom rides, grassroots movements, protests.
To see law enforcement stand by while that was happening is it's a talk about a pretty eye-opening experience for law enforcement officers.
I think now we're a little more accountable, and it makes people think twice about this job.
We walk in full uniform. I don't know how that would make someone in the museum feel, but we actually got really good reception. People were coming up to us like, we really appreciate you coming here to learn about this. It shows that you care.
And so I guess the message that we're trying to get to officers overall is you got to question things, especially when they look wrong. You got to question that and see whether or not we're playing a role in something that is really wrong.
And I think having to think about the decisions that people back then were making. Do I risk my life by going to this protest? Do I stand up and say something? Because it was dangerous. No matter who you were on the buses, on freedom rides, you were taking your life in your hands. And the bravery that the people showed, thinking about that, would I have made that same decision? And I hope I would have.
One really big, important part of going to the museum is seeing those awful things. And it was hard to face all of that and be like, how did we do this to people?
That's not us. That's the way it was. That was an embarrassing time in American policing history, but we have moved forward.
I think we have progressed from the civil rights era. Now there's still work to be done, absolutely, but we have made progressions since the Civil Rights Act in 1964. So
You started just feeling very, very, very bad, just because of what the history is. But then you leave kind of feeling hopeful for the future. And as you make your way up, you start to see people emerge, like Harriet Tubman, Booker T. Washington, Martin Luther King Jr.
Public Enemy to Michael Jordan to Muhammad Ali.
Oprah Winfrey's set and pictures of Obama being inaugurated.
I may not have agreed with them on everything, but yet the fact that we was less than 50 years removed from the Civil Rights Act being enforced, and then we had our first African-American president.
You just see how African Americans have actually risen up, and they've they've empowered themselves to higher levels of everything, economics, education, social stat, everything.
It really sold that well. We've made great strides, but we're not done yet. We have a long way to go still.
I definitely recommend future classes go to it just so they can see the policing aspect of it.
We have to understand the history and show communities, hey, we understand we've screwed up. Law enforcement's done some horrific things in the past. We're here to work with you now. What can we do to get you to trust us and work together?